starting your own business. We have some very experienced entrepreneurs up here that are going to be talking a little bit about the business creation process, and then we're going to have an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. So I'm going to start by introducing Matt. Matt, if you want to do a quick introduction about yourself.
My name is Matt Barber. I'm co-founder of the Financial Knowledge Institute, which is a national nonprofit 501c3 based on financial literacy. We go into employer groups and try and teach employees and other individuals within corporations a little bit more about personal finance.
Fantastic. And we have Lisa, who was here earlier.
Hi, Lisa Halpern. I'm the founder and CEO of Kiboo. Our mission is to bring people closer to their money. We created our first product that's launched in market, which is really a new way to bank focused on teens, young adults, parents teaching their kids about money.
Great. And lastly, we have Zach.
Hey guys, I'm the co-founder of BeginU, and it is a platform for students to gain real-world experience while they're in college and ultimately help them find a job.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all for joining us today. So as I mentioned, the topic for today's panel is just do it, starting a business. So I think at first we're going to maybe start a little bit more general, and then I'd like to get into some of the specifics. But I guess we'll start with Matt. I kind of wanted to ask a little bit about just the process. It's a very intimidating process, and what I've learned in my entrepreneurship education is that there's no set path. You can major in the sciences, you can major in English, you don't even have to go to school. Like, there's so many paths to entrepreneurship. So let's maybe first talk about just advice, like getting advice. Do you feel like that there's books, there's resources, there's mentors that would help people, or what do you think is the best way to just get started in this whole process?
I think you can base that on a lot of things. I think you need to stay kind of consumed with what you know, kind of what you feel true about. I think there's a lot out there that you can learn from a lot of different sources. The internet is full of great sources. The SBA, your local small business association, is a great source for both lending and for just how to get things started. So I think that's a good starting point.
At least we do.
Sure. So for how I take your question is really just having an idea and starting with that of an idea. Like, what are you passionate about? And it doesn't have to be what you went to school for. It could be anything that you'd like to do. But if you don't have the passion behind that idea and the drive, you're not going to be able to sustain it. So I think that's the first place.
And I'll follow up. In terms of resources, I find, to go off of Lisa's comment, when you have a passion, it's pretty easy to attract other people who have that passion as well, that want to help you out. And oftentimes those people will be resources for you. So oftentimes as an entrepreneur, before taking an action, you have to look at the resources that are available to you, and those people are often right in front of you.
How about also part of resources, I would say, is surrounding yourself around people that might have this entrepreneurial mindset. So do you have any advice for people that are seeking to kind of surround themselves in this network, or surround themselves around people that are also entrepreneurial? What kind of advice would you have for people that?
I think the best way is to talk, communicate with people. I think you'll find a lot of people that you never knew had entrepreneurial mindsets and things like that. I think you'll find out just based on having conversations and communicating with people what your aspirations are, what you're trying to do. Is a good way to start a conversation.
If I had to break down my top 5 failures, one of my number 1 failures is that I didn't get out early enough. I was on a whiteboard just trying to keep my head down and how do we get this new way to bank? And I was whiteboarding it out. it wasn't until like 2 years in that I started networking out, going to meetups. I don't have a tech background. Getting that tech piece was so crucial. And so as soon as you can get out there and building your own community and resources, whether it's pitch events or incubators or meetups or whatever it is, just get out there and start to build your own network. You'll gravitate towards what you're interested in, and your idea is going to change over that time as well.
And your relationships, how I interpret this question, is basically your friend circle, and how you want to position yourself. And a great Tim Ferriss quote talks about how your 5 closest friends pretty much make up who you are. So you should really look at that closely and see who your friends are, because oftentimes if you are very proud to call someone your friend, you're doing the right thing. And if you're not, maybe you have to look at yourself in the mirror and meet some new people. So that's really important also when starting a business, to be happy where you are at, because you're definitely going to need your friends for support and also resources.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think something that a lot of us struggle with is the word entrepreneurship. A lot of young adults I meet, they struggle with calling themselves entrepreneurs. Is it ringing? They struggle calling themselves entrepreneurs because they're confused. They're like, oh, well, like I'm not really an entrepreneur. They don't. But I think more broadly, we should kind of, define it as people that like to solve problems. So how do you go about, whenever you identify an idea and you kind of build your community, how do you understand whether your solution, I'm assuming obviously you want it to be profitable, but how do you kind of analyze the problems versus the solutions that you come up with in order to start a business?
I think it's going to depend. What I've seen is it's an ever-evolving process. I know very successful companies that have started out as nothing even close to what they are now. And it's really just a process of failing, your failures, getting feedback from industry and your peers, and finding out which direction to go from there. There's not a huge issue with failing in the world, as long as you can take and learn from those failures and move on.
Right, so if you look at the problems versus the solutions, whether it depends on, we're so broad right now, but you have to look at what it is that you're trying to solve and then who your customers are, and then iterate from that, because a lot of times, Apple, Steve Jobs says, I don't listen to my customers, I tell them what they want, by design, and they've done well at it. For us, we get pretty close to our customers to know what they want. So it's just a matter of knowing your industry, knowing your idea, and how you can bridge that gap between what you think the solution is going to be from a whiteboard to what it actually is once you have a product. And that's how you're going to iterate. And I think as close as you can get to your customer, the better off you are.
And I think when it comes to problem, the solution is maybe 20%. The problem is by far the most important thing. And usually you have a problem because you can relate to it. I know personally, that's why I started BeginU, because I was a student. It's just way too hard to figure out the route you take in college. So when you're passionate about something, you'll figure it out. And in terms of the money, once you start getting more entrenched and iterating on your idea, you'll figure out how to make money. Looking at inspiration is really important, and seeing what other companies are doing in your space or similar spaces. So just looking at what the other guy is doing, call it inspiration. That's what I would say.
Great. So we have the resources, we have the idea, we have the problem identified. Now we have to figure out the market. So what tools do all of you kind of think about and utilize when it comes to determining whether or not there is a sufficient market for what problem that you're attacking?
Well, I think to go back to what Zach said, I mean, if you're trying to solve a problem that you currently have, you're probably not the only one that has it. So if you're faced with an everyday problem or something that you're looking for, and you can find a creative, applicable way to solve that problem, I think the market is going to be there. There's always doing studies and things through local community-based research. But I think if you have an idea of something that you were looking for, looking to solve, I think it's there for other people.
I can give you maybe something tangible based on Kiboo and what I did as a startup is when I was just on a whiteboard, I wanted to understand sort of the banking industry, and I just started just doing my own market research. So there's $200 billion of spend between, for teenagers and young adults. And I was like, wow, that's an opportunity. That's a pretty big market. There are 30 million people between the ages of 15 and 22. And so you start getting data points. Then you take it one more step closer and you start talking to your people who are either going to buy your product or you're going to sell it to, either way. And you start knowing, well, the banks really have this problem. They want this market, but they don't know how to get it. Or we start doing focus groups with students and saying, I hate my bank. Why do I hate my bank? Because they don't know they don't tell me. I just want to know what my balance is. How come we don't tell me? So you kind of have to evolve when you do your market research. And I guess when you're just starting out with an idea, first get it a big competitive landscape. And then you start talking to people and kind of go from there.
I think the solution is pretty easy. Just go where your market is. Personally, I just moved back to Syracuse and slept on an air mattress at my co-founder's house. So if you're passionate about something, you'll go wherever it takes you. And in terms of seeing if your potential customers like it, it's pretty interesting. We launched last week, and when you launch something, when it comes to an idea as opposed to a tangible thing, the response is very different. So, put something out there, and definitely iterate as quickly as possible, and ask people, what do you think about it? But when you're just an idea, you're nothing compared to when you put something out there, and really see the response by your market.
It's something that my mentors have taught me, it really resonates with what Zach just said, is the idea of starting before you feel ready. And that's kind of just getting yourself out there, really just attacking whatever problem you're trying to solve, and it's okay to pivot, but not planning every single step along the way. That's why I hear a lot of people, they really don't like business plans nowadays, because it's great to have your idea on paper, but it is always pivoting, it's always evolving, and you need to...
And I do want to say one thing. Don't put especially if you are a tech company, if you put your idea out there too early, you'll get crushed if it's a crappy idea. So launch when you may not be totally ready, but launch when you have something that's a nicely designed product. Because if you think you launch way too early, you can get crushed and you may not have a second chance. So.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's about finding that balance of being able to validate it and being prepared enough, but also being open to changing something and allowing it to evolve. So now that we've talked about the market, let's talk about execution a little bit. I think this is really where it varies tremendously among entrepreneurs how they choose to execute. So could you all perhaps walk through the process of how you kind of go from this phase of, now that you've identified your problem in your market, how exactly you're actually going to build something tangible around these ideas that you have?
Well, I think depending on what market you're looking at and what your actual business is, I think funding is a huge issue. I think now more than ever, there's very popular kind of creative ways to fund a new business. There's crowdsourcing, which is a huge new thing, Kickstarter, and Indiegogo. Indiegogo and all those types of websites where you can put your business out there and look for angel investors, whether it's based on a revenue sharing basis or whether it's just someone who's willing to help you out. There's also B Corps and different things that are really new, interesting ways to fund, but I think making sure that you have an idea of where you're going and that you have proper financial planning is a good way to start. And always be willing to hear feedback. So, it's
yeah, it depends on your businesses, as Matt said, and how much money you have. So if you don't have any money for marketing to do big campaigns, start word of mouth, start giving away the product for free, start getting, just think of whatever ideas to start to build your customer base, so that you can then begin to expand and grow it.
And in my opinion, it's all about the product. That's the primary thing. When it comes to a team and building out the team and having the right resources to make it go, same thing. It comes down to your passion. You'll attract the people. So just keep putting your idea out there. Put yourself in positions that will cause serendipity to occur that will give you the upper hand. But it's all about the product and or the service, I believe, before the marketing and before all of that. And just keep telling people, keep sharing what your passion is, what your goal is, and that'll attract people to help you out. And as you probably know, in the tech space, everyone needs developers. So if any of you guys are trying to pursue something, you'll easily get a job if you just become a programmer. So everyone needs one.
So I think also another challenging aspect of being a young entrepreneur is lack of experience and credibility. And many investors, they're very hesitant when it comes to provide funding. I think something we could touch up on, and you mentioned this, Matt, is crowdfunding. That definitely is an easy way to bypass all the venture capitalists and angel investors. But would you also be able to shed light on perhaps how you could secure funding when you are a new young entrepreneur? I mean, I think it sounds like a very difficult and laborious process. So if you all have any comments on.
Yeah, I think it's really opening up to younger crowds now. I think the older, white-haired mentality is kind of losing its effect. I think people are seeing that a lot of young people have a lot of great ideas, and a lot of technology is coming from those generations. I think that as long as you can communicate well and you can speak what you're trying to solve, I think people are getting more and more open to actually helping.
We bootstrapped it for a long time and raised some angel seed investments, and it's really about networking and getting in with the people and building trust, especially as a first-time entrepreneur. It's really, really hard. Grants is another way. We are part of an incubator, Astia, from 2009, so there's a ton of different kinds of pitch events and FYCs and New York City Investment Fund. There's all sorts of things. It's just a matter of getting out there, and it might just be a small amount of money, but starting to get your ideas to start to get talked about. It's at least the first stage of it.
So we're bootstrapping as well. I find, or what I've seen is, I'm in the student environment. So a lot of students, when they say, they have startups, people just want to see it built. Again, ideas are just an idea. So a lot of students, especially at Syracuse University, they all want to be entrepreneurs. And you just want to see the thing built. Oftentimes, startups will join accelerators. What I've seen personally, way too early. They're looking for funding and they join accelerators. They believe that'll take them over the edge. Sometimes it could be a great experience, but if you're way too early, it's more about accelerating and brainstorming and pivoting. But a lot of these startups will get to an accelerator and they should just be focusing on building, and it kind of takes them out of the picture when you join an accelerator too early. So, we're just bootstrapping, and the important thing is just, again, utilize your resources. Obviously, as a student, people are not going to take you as seriously if you, as opposed to someone who worked at Google and now started a company. Obviously, they have the upper hand, but definitely make relationships with your network or wherever you are, so they can introduce you down the line when they see you gain traction or when you actually have a viable product.
Totally. Let's maybe, I guess we got into some of the specifics, but I'd like to zoom out again really quick and perhaps ask what you wish you had known before. Is there anything that you came across that perhaps, I guess, could be, I don't really see anything as a failure in a sense because they're all learning experiences, but perhaps something that you look back on and you perhaps wish you had done it differently, but not in that, obviously with the lessons learned.
Yeah, I guess I have two partners in my main business, and we collectively have all come together and said that we wish we would have known how much time actually running a business was going to take out of our day. Doing what you love and your creative idea is going to be a very small part of what you're actually able to do, because you'll have way more to do with actually running the business and getting everything going and networking and meeting all the right people and kind of moving in the direction your business needs to move in than to actually physically just do what you want to do. So I think that's the biggest thing for us has been the experience of just finding out that there's a lot more to actually running a business. Absolutely.
Number one mistake, or wish I knew, was things take a lot longer. So you're in a more service-oriented business. We're a tech company. I thought when I started this, it'll take me a year, we'll get it up and running. No, it's still going on. It'll be 6 years in December of this year, and we just launched our product earlier this year. So things take a lot longer than you expect. Number two, one of my biggest regrets or mistakes goes to what Zach's points is bringing my tech in-house. That's probably one of my first. I wish I learned how to code in college and not become a lawyer. It's. I think that's number two. We're going to give another presentation at the end of the month, and I've got like 5 things. So if anyone wants to talk, 6, but those are probably the 2.
I would say the biggest thing, especially at some universities, still encourage business plans. And as a student, and you're writing a business plan when you have an idea, is the biggest waste of time ever. And it's just the opportunity cost involved. It's horrible. Because at that time, you could be building your product, you could be recruiting new talent. So focus on the product. You could write your business plan and just have a slide deck after it's built. Obviously it's important to understand the market and how you make money, but you need to build a product. Business plan is just some writing, and it will change, especially when you're in the idea phase. So that was something personally, we applied for a business plan and wasted a lot of time. And it's definitely a great experience, and there's positive things, and I don't regret it, but as a learning experience, I would just continue building. So I think build is the most important thing. Building and just having a cohesive team, and just being focused on your end goal.
And also, something I've heard from one of my mentors is also just sell it to one person, and this can't be your mom or like your brother or something. Like, sell it to someone that is in the market that you're seeking, and just test it out. Like, just see. You don't have to really necessarily prepare and spend all this time and money on a product that you're not sure would work. It's kind of like, as you're going through the process, really getting people involved, getting other people's input, but at the end of the day, analyzing it yourself. And for example, Apple is notorious for this, for creating products that people don't necessarily know they need. And I think Steve Jobs always talks about this, how like the customers don't actually know what they want because they don't know what's possible necessarily. So it's about just kind of building things, and perhaps as you go through the process, you're soliciting feedback. I could go on forever, but I definitely wanted to open the floor to other people that had questions. So if anyone has questions, feel free to go ahead and ask away. If not, I could. Yeah, go ahead.
What are your strategies for dealing with mistakes? Do you make mistakes, or does it go mistakes? What do you do to recover from it?
Surround yourself by an awesome team that believes in your company and has passion, because you need to be strong internally. Whether your bank, one of our processors was sold to Google last year. It's like we had to stop everything and literally rebuild the funding process. And that is a blow. But when you have a team that has a big support system, and then also just as a founder and as a CEO, having my own support system of my own sort of personal family of network people in my industry that I can call up and say, how much would you charge for this? What would you do on this case? And so building your own network that way, I think that's the strongest, that's the best thing you can do.
And you're obviously bound to make mistakes. Just look at the mistakes you made, evaluate them, and try not to make them again. But obviously understand, look at the mistake very closely and understand what you did wrong and what you can. The most important thing is what you can put in place for next time. So most likely it will come up again, and hold yourself accountable. I find that is the most important thing, and I always do that with my co-founder. After every meeting, we evaluate it. What can we add in the future? What was missing? And then just add it for next time.
Yeah, I agree. I think the entrepreneur, the person who's looking to develop a business, can become hyper-focused on the end goal. And I think that can be your biggest mistake. I mean, you can become so focused and kind of blindfolded that you're going to miss opportunities along the way. So if you see something that's coming in that is a mistake, you can turn that into an opportunity. Make that what could be your next largest opportunity.
Don't be afraid. I think I learned this really too late, but don't be afraid to ask for it. I sat in so many meetings where I'm like, clearly I wanted money, but I didn't ask for it. And I just showed them how great this business is. And, especially with the angel investors and friends and family, you're just trying to get some amount of money in. And unless you ask for it, I need X, and this is what it's going to take me to do. And you say it with confidence, and someone's going to believe you along the way.
Yeah, also as an entrepreneur, I think we also tend to focus maybe on criticism and negativity in a sense. Like if you have 100 positive feedbacks about your product or service, you'll appreciate it, but it doesn't really hit you. But if you get one hater or one negative remark, it kind of really just resonates with you. And I have a friend who owns a gym, and he said that he has a ton of customers that are very happy. Some of them pay very large premiums, but then he also has very few customers that are always complaining, and they're paying like a 20th of what the other customers are paying. Yet he actually asked these people to leave and go to a different gym. I don't necessarily recommend this approach, but it's kind of like just because you have customers that might not necessarily be supportive of what you're doing, there's tons of people out there, and I heard American Airlines does this as well with people that are sending in a lot of complaints. They blacklist you from traveling with them further. So it's kind of like there are as entrepreneurs that we tend to focus on the problems that we have, and unfortunately some negative events, but it's kind of about just bouncing back and just really enjoying and taking in all the good times and all the positive energy. Does anyone have any follow-up to any questions? So we could talk a little bit about, I want to also ask about feasibility. I think a very important thing with whenever you're coming up with a business is you might have this awesome idea, you might find the market, you might be able to execute it well, or you might think you could execute it well. But how about determining whether or not it's feasible? Because I'm sure you can have the best plan set in place, but it might not necessarily be realistic. So how do you make that determination?
I think it goes back to knowing your product and knowing your market. If it takes for you moving across the country or moving across the world to make your product that you believe in happen, and making that feasible, you make that determination.
Do that. So in order to get our idea out there and start talking about it and start a conversation, we put up Know Your Money, just content, just a conversation about money, and that was our first step. And then we started to understand the feasibility of, okay, how much do people want this? If you put a real product next to this with a, lens mount, like, will people actually start to use it? And so every single step of the way, we get closer to whether it's feasible or not. Not until we launched and we got the bank on board, we got a processor, we've integrated. It sounds feasible. So now I can tell you it's feasible, but it's relative.
So in terms of feasibility, I said it says whether it's feasible for the co-founders to actually start it. So obviously it's relative to everyone. You have to. So first thing you have to ask yourself, you'll come up with a lot of great ideas before starting a company, is you have to examine your commitments. Obviously, if you're married, and it's going to be different than if you are just coming out of college. Your commitments are different. You just have to look at that. Obviously, your passions will kind of find your path through your passions, just follow your path. But obviously, you have to examine your commitments. That's probably the first thing. Don't screw yourself up.
So I think we have like a couple minutes left. I wanted to, ask the panelists if they had any closing remarks, and then maybe if there's like one question we'll have time for it, but do you have any?
I would just say if you're looking to start a business and you're thinking things through it, really just be sure what you're looking at. Is it something that you can be passionate about? Is it something that you think that will apply to others? Talk to your community, your own personal resources. By the way, I think don't be too afraid to start, because we can make so many excuses on why not to take the first step. But once you do take that first step, I think you'll see yourself running.
And entrepreneurship is popular, but having that good idea, I think it's harder. And a lot of people, I just wish I had. I've got a bunch of developers that work for me, like, well, we had the idea. At least you've got the idea, you've got the vision, we just built it. So I think it's, if you don't have that idea yet and what you're going to be passionate about and you're trying to figure that out, go work for a startup. Go and get closer, or a competitor or something. Go start to be closer to know what it's like to work in an environment that's starting a new business and what it takes, because it may or may not be for you.
And when you're starting a business, obviously you're going to be sharing your idea and wanting to hear feedback, and take that feedback with a grain of salt. There's been a lot of people telling you that your idea sucks or you should be doing it a certain way. So you should definitely listen to people. That's very important. But definitely don't just pivot just because this person who's maybe a professor who you respect, or a professor who has a lot of degrees tells you one way or says it can't work. Because believe me, we've been working on this for 2 years, and we would bring this to so many professors who, there's a few that were like, this is so bad, horrible idea. Then we launch, and then their feedback is different. But obviously our product is very different too. So your product naturally evolves, or your service or what you're offering naturally evolves as you kind of find your alignment, what you're aligned to, your passion. So just take everything with a grain of salt, but definitely do listen to people, especially customers. That's fair.
What if you're concerned about sharing your ideas either? You know, like everyone's like, oh, we can't tell anybody, it's in stealth mode. You know what? It is so hard to start to build a company and to get some feedback. There's plenty of ways to talk about your idea without revealing, exactly, your secret sauce.
Right. I actually heard this with a lot of venture capitalists as well, as a lot of them actually refuse to sign non-disclosure agreements because they find it a waste of time to deal with the paperwork involved in that process. They have told me that they get so many ideas. Ideas are very common, but it's about having the team that is there to execute the idea, because that is what is unique about the idea. It's who is going to be, it's the execution of the idea, not necessarily what the idea is. So,
And one other thing that's NDA is very true in this current environment. When you speak to people about your idea, and they're giving their opinion, see what their credentials are. Oftentimes, professors, I'm just relating to this education industry, oftentimes professors will teach entrepreneurship or teach different classes, yet they've never owned a business. They just went to school, got many degrees. So also look at that as well. Because what you're doing by starting a business is pretty ballsy, so it's pretty easy to just reject someone, especially if they're older than you, and that culture pulls for a professor to kind of, this is my way or the highway type of thing. So just take everything in a grain of salt.
We usually follow up with why after it's
Yeah, that's great.
so that you can understand why they're giving you that.
So ask them for an alternative.
Yeah.
So like, okay, you don't like this. This is what we do. So you don't like this. Do you have an alternative that would be better? And the people that don't offer you an alternative, that's totally a red flag. When they're like, the design is horrible. It looks way too much like Facebook. So just ask them. So do you have another opinion? And if they don't, usually that's a red flag right there. And they're just trying to prove you wrong. So.
just the last comment I would make about this is, as we've discussed, you don't learn entrepreneurship from a book or a classroom. You literally learn entrepreneurship by doing it. And one of the most important things as a young entrepreneur I've found is that a lot of it's been done before. We're always constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, when just right now you've heard from 3 fantastic entrepreneurs that have done this. And it's more about just finding these people that have done it and are willing to provide their advice. Because from all the entrepreneurs I've spoken to, they have told me that the process of building your product and the process is much better than the end result. It's the experiences and it's the struggles and all the hardships that you face as an entrepreneur. So on that, I'd like to thank all of you for listening to this, and let's please give a round of applause for this. They'll probably be around for a couple minutes if you have questions for them individually. And I think, you might have to check the program for what's happening next, but thank you all so much for listening. And also, please remember to tweet your questions to #NextGenFinance. Thank you.